Right, we're ready to get started. If you are a patient, Dr. Iyer has some great information to share with you. And she has been an enormous support to the foundation. She's on our medical advisory board. And we have just really appreciated her always being open to helping. And so go ahead, Renuka.
You're welcome to move up if you're feeling like in the corners there. But as Stacy said, I am a medical oncologist, and I feel fortunate to have this chance to talk to you about nurturing hope. The fact that you all are here gives us hope. And seeing each other and seeing other people that have the same diagnosis, I'm sure has already been encouraging, more so than before you got here. So before I say anything about hope, I know that the successes in our lives, as well as in this journey, are fewer than our failures. And if it were the opposite, then we wouldn't be having this meeting. And you wouldn't be asking for someone to come up here and talk about hope. So we have to recognize that. And we know that there is work to be done. But a courageous person or a brave person is not someone who doesn't know or feel fear. It's someone who knows how to deal with it. And how do you still find ways to live every day, move on, and be hopeful? And that's kind of what we're trying to do a little bit of by just your presence here, both for you and for us. So I'm going to ask you a question. How many of you were diagnosed within the past year? Not quite a year. Well, congratulations. You've come here, and I have to ask you, did you think you would be here? Did you think that you could come and travel like this and be well enough to meet other people? You surprised yourself, huh? And what about people who've been diagnosed and heard you have cholangiocarcinoma? There's a tumor, there's a mass, more than a year ago, but not quite 2 years. You see them. I hope you're looking at them. Look at them. They did it. They did it. And if there. And are there any people here who have been diagnosed more than 2 years? Please stand up. Please stand up. Thank you. You give us all hope that this is possible, because when you read the statistics, that's not supposed to happen, right? But here, there's proof, and there's more of you than there is the others. So it's possible. Wow, are there any people who have been doing this for 11 years? There. Well, and I know that there are many people watching from home that, for whatever reason, couldn't come. And I know there are many of you out there, and you have stories like this to tell also. So I want to start by telling you that we are all more health than we are disease. We have more healthy cells in our body than we have not healthy cells in our body. And so even when you have gone to a doctor's office and they have told you something is bad on the scan or something has grown and something has recurred, that's still a very small part of you. The rest of you is still good. It's fighting, right? And when you take chemo, we're trying to kill a part, and then the rest of you is supposed to not be disturbed or bothered by this bad chemical that we're putting in, and that makes it hard to do. But we still do it. We are more successful after spending billions and billions of dollars. We haven't quite figured out all the stars and galaxies. We haven't quite figured out how to get to Mars and hang out there. But look how much progress we've made in this disease. We've made so much progress. I mean, I know we say there's not enough dollars, but we are able to do a lot more with what we have done. You know, return on investment, there's been a lot more. When you think of what can't be done, you also have to see what can be done. And when I talk about being more healthy than not, I want you to remember that always. I had a patient, and her name was Judy, and I remember feeling bad when her cancer came back and shaking my head, and she lifted my spirits when she said, "Hey, doc, you know, every single day we win. Only one day this cancer is gonna win, right?" And she was right. And that one day, the last day of our lives, is gonna come for all of us. So don't think of that. Just think of the health and think of the fact that there's a lot more you can do and you are doing, your body is doing every single day. So now focusing on that healthy body, every single minute of the day, you cannot be thinking about fighting cancer. You know our genes? We have introns and exons, and we're trying to understand the body, we're trying to understand our genetic makeup, right? So the exons are the ones that are like the translated genetic material, most of which we know what they do. And the introns, you know what they are? Nothing. They're just little breaks. And if you look at the sizes of the base pairs of the exons versus the introns, the exons are more or less, there is a variation, so let's call it the work hours. There is a variation, but they're more or less about close, not more than threefold different in size. But when you look at the introns, I call that the rest time. Those base pairs, the difference in the size is, the size of those spaces, it goes from 1 to many thousands. That means your body needs, at least God thought when he made our DNA, you need more rest. And the chunks of rest can be tiny or huge. But the times that our body is sending genetic messages and working, those pieces are more or less about the same size. So if you're feeling bad that you couldn't work or you took time off and you're not doing something that you're used to doing, we all do too much. We have too many things on our to-do list all the time. And sometimes you have to stop and take care of your body, fight this cancer, do research, do whatever it is you have to do, and think of this body that God made. He put more breaks of varying lengths, very, very long breaks, in your DNA. That's a sign. Sometimes you have to take a year off. That happens. And if it happens, it happens. Take that time. You need it. And sometimes when you rest and you rejuvenate and come back, new ideas come to you. A new thought comes to your mind. And whatever it is that's bringing you down and making you feel really, really not hopeful will go away after you rest and sleep. Just dwelling on it doesn't help sometimes. And we also have tough days, right? Doctors have tough days, you have tough days, everyone has a tough day. And I never stopped to think what to do at the end of a tough day. I would go home and say, "Oh, how was your day?" "Oh, it wasn't a very good day." And I would just let it kind of like end as a not good day, like not quite Alexander, not very good, bad day, but something like not good. And one day, one of my biliary cancer patients, he was the youngest of 5 brothers, and he always came mostly alone, but sometimes with his oldest brother, Billy. And he had had cancer resected and came back for a follow-up. Unfortunately, there was this small pleural effusion, and I was worried that it was malignant because it shouldn't be there, and we had taken cells out of it to, test. So he came for the results, and he was sitting in clinic. It was 2 hours later. The report had not come. It should have come by then, and it wasn't there. And I was paging the pathologist, and he didn't answer. And then I discovered, they put this government thing, like when people are, like, I don't know, in the Middle East, they can't come back. They were stuck at the border. Something bad happens, whatever. So the pathologist had not come back. And I felt bad. I said, "I'm sorry, I don't have the results. I'll call you or whatever." And I know when you're waiting for results, you get nervous. And, like, the hours are just like, I don't know, they seem so long. So I didn't want him to sleep that night not knowing, stressful. So at 7:15 in the evening, I had called another doctor to look, and he looked, and he called me, and he said, yeah, it's, unfortunately, it is cancer. So I called him, and I didn't know what to say, but from my voice, he could tell, that the news was not good. And I said, I'm so sorry to tell you this on the phone. I really don't like to do this, but I don't want you to wait. I didn't know which one was worse, telling you on the phone or not telling you, so I figured I'll tell you. And then he said, well, don't feel bad for me. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was pregnant with me, and she chose to have me instead of having the cancer taken care of. And she died 2 years later. And I've always felt very guilty that because she made that decision, all 5 of us didn't have a mother growing up. And so really, I've always felt like my life was a gift from my mom, and I shouldn't even be here. So, you've done great, and you're going to do great. I'm going to be your best patient. Don't worry about it. So I said, who are you going to tell? And he said, Billy, Billy, he's waiting. He's going to ask me, so I'm going to tell him. But I'm not going to tell him right now. I'm first going to go and get a really good steak. And I said, okay. Then he asked me, how come you're still there? What are you going to have for dinner? And I was like, I don't know, leftovers. And he said, well, what do you like to eat? And I said, shrimp. And he said, well, maybe you should get some shrimp. You don't sound like you've had a very good day either. And I have not forgotten that. Very good point. Some days are not good. And as I'm walking home, driving home, getting into the parking lot, I tell myself, I'm not going to let this day end thinking this was the worst day. I'm going to do something that's going to make my day better. And I have a bag of shrimp in my fridge all the time. It takes 5 minutes to thaw. I make some shrimp. So listen, sometimes you just have to figure out what it'll take to make that day that wasn't so great just a little bit better, just a little bit better. And then the next day is going to be a lot better. I was fortunate to participate at Roswell in a Nurture Your Hope sort of weekend, not like a 2-day retreat. And at that retreat, we meet other people, other patients, caregivers, and just give people tools on how to get back that framework, that mindset. The whole point of your brain is constantly on the go thinking, I have to solve this problem. I have to find an answer. I need to solve all this. But 24/7 thinking about this doesn't help. It makes us anxious. And think about Golden Gate Bridge for a second, right? If something was constantly pinching one section of the bridge and holding it up, how is the rest of the bridge going to function? It can't. So it's, this worry, this fear, this thing that grips us and is on our minds. If we don't let it go for a little bit, you can't function. It's going to paralyze you. And I attended a lecture by this psychologist once, and she had this glass of water, half full, and she held it up. And everybody was like, I know what you're going to ask, half full, half empty. And she said, no. My question is, what do you think this glass weighs? And that's kind of weird. What? I can guess the weight of a person. I can't guess the weight of a glass because I don't know, in that small volume. But she stood there and people guessed, whatever, some weights. And she said, well, I hate to tell you, you're all wrong. And it's, if you ask me to stand here holding this glass of water for the duration of this talk, it weighs nothing. But if you tell me that I can't put this glass down for 24 hours, it's going to weigh a lot. And if you told me I cannot put this glass down at all, forever, this is impossible. My arm will fall off. I cannot. And anxiety is like that. And someone who's told you have cancer, it's not a good cancer, that has to be playing in your head over and over and over. What's my scan going to be? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? But it's like that glass of water. It's very paralyzing if you don't let it go for 24 hours. I'm sure there has been a time in your diagnosis since you were told that that happened. it was hard to shake that thought off and just focus on something else and enjoy what's going on around you. Your kids are coming, they're showing you some grades, something really funny is happening, Kung Fu Panda's on, and you're not laughing because you can't, because you're standing there holding this glass thinking, oh my God, my arm's gonna fall off. And for that, there are many, many different things that you can do. What do you do when your child has a ear infection? Well, nothing. You give them an antibiotic and you put a Disney movie, right? That's what you do. And you have to wait. So it's kind of like that. You know, we all have some hobbies, but for some time of the day, meditation, focusing on the now, art, you know, there's not like an end to it. When you have a doctor's appointment, it says, you have to be here at this time and drink this CAT scan dye by this much time. And, you know, everything has like a timed result, measured, everything. It's like taking an exam every day of your life. How can you live like that? We all have to have something where we take a break, and do some things that are not result, end, measured, oriented. And drumming is one of them. Art is one of them. Just splash the paint. And they taught us in that class, in that weekend retreat, how to do some of these things, yoga, laughter, all these things, you know, they just get you out from that mindset that you're in and allow you to put that glass down for a little while. And friends do that. Friends do a great job, and I'm sure people call you and say, what can I do for you? Sometimes you might just have to say, make me laugh. Get me out of my house. Everybody here is driving me crazy. And let's just go somewhere and not talk about this for a little while, you know? And go to a sports game, you know, just for 3 hours. Get your mind off of it. And all of these things, hobbies, thinking of health more than disease, and just that mindset of, you know, no matter what this day is like, at the end of the day, I'm not gonna let it end feeling that this was a horrible day. Ask yourself, as you're driving, is this a horrible day? I have to do something to make this day better. Even if it's flipping through little cards I got, or Facebook where people wrote cheerful messages, whatever it takes to make me feel better. Get your, I don't know, whatever is your thing. There is you interact with doctors a lot, and there are days when you feel kind of down, perhaps because you feel no one's listening. I'm sure there has been a time when you've said to someone, you know, I need this, or you know, why is this not an option? And in the rush of going through clinic, sometimes we're not as patient as we should be. And sometimes your instinct is telling you, this is not the right thing for me, but yet that's what's told. And you have to walk away from there and say, now what am I gonna do? You're not alone. This has happened to many people in many walks of life. There's this story I read about a woman, she worked in the CIA. So she was Puerto Rican and a woman, so some minority factors, maybe not working in her favor, but regardless, she was ahead of her time. What she was asking for was for the CIA to basically take the intelligence data that they had and post it and share it with other intelligence agencies all over the world. And this was a very revolutionary idea at the time, and they didn't like it. And the more she said it, the more she believed in it, the louder she said it. And the more frustrated she got that nobody was listening. But finally, when she started to say it, you know, repeatedly and angrily, because she was, you know, time was passing and she felt it was important. This was national security. She had to do it. They finally told her, maybe you should find another job. And so she quit. And she found another job in the CIA in a different portion of the building. And now she spent the next 3 years reworking her strategy on how she was going to deliver this message. So the point here is that sometimes what you're thinking, trust your instincts. What you're thinking is right. Maybe you are absolutely right, but the audience is not right. Maybe that physician is not aware of what you're aware of. You've been reading a lot. Maybe it's time to get that second opinion. Or maybe it's time to see if you have to switch courses a little bit and look in a different direction, because this person is not receiving your message the way you intended. And also re-look at how you're delivering the message. Because sometimes when we're passionate, we get all worked up. And then the form becomes the message, not the content. So think about that. Is it how I said it? And it could be that this woman was ahead of her time. And it could be that the message was just delivered not quite in the right way. But fast forward 3 years, 9/11 happened. And then she mustered the courage, mustered the support, got more people to see, built her credibility, and re-delivered the same message. And that message was what is now called Intellipedia. It is basically all the security systems of like the world are now sharing security information. And that helped keep the people safe at the Beijing Olympics, and that helped so many other important missions relating to national security occur. And it all happened because the timing, she just had to wait. She just had to wait. When the time is right, sometimes it'll happen. So some of your, maybe not hopelessness, but feeling of less hopeful, feelings may come because your thoughts are ahead of us. You're already thinking of something and we're not ready to receive it. And there you may have to frame shift a little. Do I need another opinion? How do I package this message a little differently? And all of those things will get you there, So with all of those H-letter thoughts of healing, I thought I'd shift gear and talk to you a little bit about the O of hope. It's not, oh my God. It could be, this is an opportunity. And it is. After you heard you had cancer, I'm sure for a little while you doubted whether you could do this. But you did. You thought you were busy before, your life was full before, and then you managed to get all these doctor's visits, scans, follow-ups, and all the other things that you're doing right now. You managed to do all of that stuff, right? So your time management skills have come to like a whole other level. You are all experts in that. How many other things have you learned about your own strengths and weaknesses? A lot. You know a lot more about yourself today that you didn't know before. You also had the opportunity to figure out who your true supporters are, who your true friends are. And maybe there were 1 or 2 disappointments along the way. People didn't come through that you hoped. But I'm sure there were many more that came through that you didn't expect. Neighbors, friends. People baked things, called, wrote cards, messages that were very encouraging. And some people in the healthcare system that you've met have maybe become what will be lifelong friends. And those are all opportunities that this diagnosis has brought. And some people won't be able to go back to work, to the job you had, but maybe look at it as an opportunity to find another passion, another calling. And for some of you, you found it. You're doing it. You're doing advocacy. There's one person here who's going to be showing you some really cool musical talents at the end of the day. She's a music teacher. She's a teacher of music teachers. And she's going to be doing advocacy. And then she's going to run to Sloan Kettering to get her liver pump filled with chemo. I don't know how she's doing it, but she's doing it. She's seeing these opportunities, and she's grabbing them and making it all come together. And as for me, I feel like I found my calling. I don't know what life is going to bring. I don't know what else is going to come to me, but I know that this is a chance for me to see the impact that I can have. I came from India. There were no doctors in my family. They were happy if I would have treated just the people in my neighborhood. But I came here. I got to do research. Someone funded my first grant. And since then, I got many, many more. And just like we wish for you, for your birthdays, for life, for good scans, that's what we can wish for you. We say we wish you many, many more. It took hard work to get there, but a lot of it was the opportunity. This country has so many opportunities, and I was able to take advantage of them. This foundation is giving you many, many opportunities to mentor each other, help each other. Take them. Do something with them. That's all really in your hands and in your power. And I feel like maybe that's your calling and you just didn't know it. I know for Stacy it was. maybe the worst thing that happened to her family was her brother getting this cancer, but maybe it also was the best thing that happened to the family, because look what they did. So many members of her family are involved in this foundation, and for some of them, this is a lifetime experience and a calling. So think of it like that. Also see the opportunity for gratitude. I feel like that does help us all to put things in perspective, you know. As much as we hate the insurances, we have insurances. These therapies are expensive. At the advocacy board yesterday, someone was asking me about pediatrics, and they said something about a young man in South Africa, and he didn't have access to the drugs that, you know, we all have here. And it's heartbreaking. Some parts of the world don't have that. So we have to remember to, you know, be grateful. And I'm going to try not to cry now, but I have to tell you about my friend Maya. Maya grew up in Bosnia and left during the war. Her house was taken away. Her father died in a random act of violence. They never found the person who killed him or his body. She moved to Canada and then was a resident with me in New York City. Unfortunately, was diagnosed with breast cancer and was getting her care at the Mayo Clinic. And after she had her surgery and I was with her, we were eating lunch in a restaurant. The surgeon called. It was not a very good report on the final pathology. There were 3 tumors and 15 lymph nodes that were all involved. So she hung up after talking to him, and the server was walking by, and she said, "Can we have some champagne?" And I thought she lost her mind. And I said, "Maya, what are you doing?" And she said, "I'm ordering champagne. I'm going to make sure it's Moet, because that's the best." And I couldn't understand what she was doing. But I learned a very big life lesson from her that day. I said, "Maya, why are you doing this?" And she said, "Renu, I grew up learning that everything can go away like that. My country doesn't exist. When people ask me, 'Where are you from?' because she had an accent, I say former Yugoslavia. Pretty much most people don't even know where Yugoslavia is or was, because it doesn't even exist in many maps anymore. So I'm actually celebrating not that, but the fact that all of that cancer now lives in a pathology lab and not in me. And I'm celebrating that I had you with me when this news came. I didn't want my family to see me. I just wanted you. And you were here. Because we were in Minneapolis, and I lived in Buffalo, and she lived in Minot, North Dakota. And I never forgot that, because even in that moment, she had 100 reasons to be miserable, but she found 2 good reasons to be happy. And ever since that time, when I get a grant or something happens, I make sure I drink champagne or something bubbly, because I remember Maya. And I remember that, and I try to remind myself, that our efforts are so many. Going through every cycle of chemo is so hard. And that one scan shows good results. But what we remember is just the hard work if we don't celebrate that one day, you know? So you won't remember being in college. You won't remember studying for that exam, but you will remember who you celebrated with. You'll remember what shirt you wore. Go get a new tie. Go get funky shoes. I don't care what you do, but celebrate life. And I learned that. And from that point on, every grant I got, every victory, I decided I'm not letting it go. That's my lesson to myself. I'm getting something bubbly. So that's Maya, and I miss her very much. And one moving forward from opportunity to the P of the hope is purpose. Growing up in India, they taught me, your life's purpose is to find your purpose. And it was like, what? But it's true, right? We all have a purpose, and we have to find it, because tomorrow is not promised to anyone. And yeah, one day we're all going to leave. But what if we lived every day to the fullest with passion? You like to plant? Go plant flowers. Let everybody enjoy them. Go plant trees, right? Do it. Just do it. You like pets? Fine. Go take your dog for a walk. I don't know what your passion is, but live it to the fullest and find your purpose. And I'll tell you another story about purpose. I treat neuroendocrine cancer, which is also a rare cancer. And I had this patient who had a very strange last name. He was from Latvia originally. And he had been my patient with pancreatic neuroendocrine cancer for about 8 years at that time. This was 5, 6 years ago. And he said, I really want to see my daughter graduate. We had run out of options. There were really no trials going on for neuroendocrine cancer, except this one therapy called peptide radioreceptor therapy, PRRT. So it's an IV form of radiation that's given that goes and targets receptors. And it had been in Europe for a really long time, but not yet in the US. And so I told him, well, PRRT could get us more than a year or two, but it's not approved in the US and there's no way to get it here. You'll have to travel to Europe. And he knew time was running out and he didn't want to use up all their savings to go to Europe and do this. He wanted to leave money behind for his family and so on. And he was like, well, how much is this going to cost? I was like, well, I don't know for sure, but I can look into it. And so we looked into it. And let's try. I said, let's try. Let's see if the insurance will pay for it. And I, sent the thing. Of course, they denied it, and then they gave us the opportunity to do a peer-to-peer. So I get on the phone, and I'm doing this peer-to-peer, and I tell the doctor the story. He wants to see his daughter graduate. This is the only thing that's going to get him that time. Don't make them choose between their life savings being spent, on the therapy versus savings for the family. And he said, no, I'm sorry. I said, well, can I tell you one more story about him? And he said, okay, fine, what is it? And I said, sometimes we're not ready, even though we know that something is going to work. It's not yet available to everybody. In vitro fertilization was not available many years ago, and it was not covered by insurance. Even today, it isn't by all insurances. And they lived in North Carolina 20-some years ago. And at that time, they found one OBGYN who was willing to, cash pay, give them a shot at in vitro fertilization. And they had a baby. His name was Adam. He lived 1.5 years and got appendicitis. Which 1.5-year-old baby gets appendicitis? But he did. And this was not picked up. It wasn't diagnosed. And then there was a medical error that happened, and this child died. And it was horrible. And the whole town knew, in the little town they lived, that this bad thing had happened. And they couldn't live there anymore. Everybody said, do you want to sue the doctors? And they were not that kind of family. They said, no, we're just going to move away from here because everybody was constantly talking about it, And they knew someone in Buffalo, so they were on their way, moving up to Buffalo. But the doctor that saw this in the news recognized that unusual last name and said, this is that baby that I, made. And so he called them and said, I'm not going to charge you anything. You guys come back, and I want to help you guys get another child. And that is Erin. And this Erin, unfortunately, is going to graduate in 1.5 years from now. And for the last 8 years of her life, she's always had this looming thing about whether her dad would see her graduate or not. So don't say no. Medicine has not, the payers, everything has just not gone in their favor. Don't be the thing that stops him from being here in 1 year from now. And he was pretty moved by this story. And he said, I'm going to go against all logic, and I'm going to approve this. And I said, okay, this is pretty cool. And I hung up, and I called his wife, and I said, hey, get ready, back up. You guys are going. They're going to pay for this. And they couldn't believe it. They were all excited. And they told people in their church, and they baked all these, people bake really well, I guess. And so they baked these really yummy cookies and sent me a little card, and it said in there, I've saved it. It's like one of my treasures. And it said, "Dear Dr. Iyer, you always told us to live life to the fullest because tomorrow is not promised to anyone, and to find our purpose. And we could never understand why Adam came in our life and why his life was so short. But today we know what the purpose of his life was, and it was to get his dad this therapy and make sure he's around to see his sister graduate. Love," and then they signed it, all three of them, and Adam. And it was sort of strange to see that card because you feel so spooky, but at the same time, I felt like he had lived his life and he wasn't asking for a lot. He just came and said, "What can we do, doc?" And I just didn't have the heart to say nothing. And I just took a couple of calls and one story, and all this stuff happened. He did see her graduate, and I'm friends with the family, and I'm just so happy that that story ended, not perfectly a happy ending, but a lot better than it would have if they had said no. And this Friday, I thought of him this week a lot, this weekend a lot. This Friday, now, 5 years later, PRRT was approved in the United States. It took all that time. But it's here, you know? And so that's important. The work's getting done, but sometimes you have to try these little channels. And let's end with something more upbeat. You're not alone. The E is everyone. Everyone. We're all in this together. I know when the diagnosis comes, they say, "You have cancer." It's true, it's true. But this affects everyone. It affects your whole family, your community, your church, your sports team, whatever it is that you are part of. They can't imagine what you're going through. They can't fully be in your shoes. And as much as I may sound like I know it, I don't know it. I can't know it because I don't live it like you do. But everyone cares about it. This is one country I've seen where people do a benefit. I didn't know what that was. I come from a country where there is so much poverty and people give money to the poor, but I've never seen what people do here, which is to encourage the family, bring them hope, bring them supplies, bring them things to really get them through a really tough patch. And that's impressive to me. Look at the pharmaceutical industry. Yes, they have to recover the costs of what they invest, but they do make drugs available for free, so much more, and the process is so easy. It is so easy. And other facts where everyone should feel encouraged that everyone is in this. In immunotherapy, in 2010 was the first indication for immunotherapy, and it was for melanoma, and that was for metastatic disease. This past year, they also showed that immunotherapy can work in the adjuvant setting. That means to prevent it from coming back. Yes, it's not been done yet to that degree in cholangiocarcinoma, but we're learning lessons from them. And it's 7 years later, and look how far we've come. We have indications in lung, in liver cancer. That's another cancer I treat, hepatocellular cancer. When I started it 14 years ago in 2006, we had nothing. Then we got sorafenib, and then last year in 2017, we got 2 drugs, regorafenib and nivolumab. And this year, we might get 3. It's moving. It's happening a lot faster than anyone can imagine. It's not fast enough, but it is happening, and everyone is in this. So many researchers are doing research, not just on cholangiocarcinoma, but let's say they're doing research in breast cancer. But they're looking at HER2 receptor sensitivity, resistance. HER2-positive gallbladder cancers respond to the same therapies. All of this research can be applied and used for our bile duct cancer patients. So yes, you don't know it at the time, and when you're sitting there and feeling kind of dark, literally the lights are off and it's dark, it's hard to see the stars, right? But sometimes when it's really, really dark and you're feeling really, really down, just stop and think of all this progress that has been made, all these drugs that have been approved, 75, 80 drugs in just the last 10 years for cancer. No other disease has so much research. No other disease has so much money devoted to the progress that's being made. So it is happening. And even this PRRT I'm talking about, FDA, they are making progress. What held them back was that they didn't have rules for the radiopharmaceutical and the drug that are combined. So they had to come up with new rules on how they're going to look at it. They have rules for botanicals. So if somebody has a really cool product that's not really a drug, they have rules on how to bring that to the FDA for approval. A lot of progress has been made, and some of this you just don't know, but you have to believe that everyone is affected, and there are many, many people whose lives, whose careers are all about this, exactly this, making these things happen and making them real for you. So my primary care doctor, I went to her once. She looked like she was having a bad day. I said, hey, what's up? Her husband has leukemia and he gets care at Roswell. So she's like, these insurances, they keep sending these letters. I'm sure you get these letters. This is denied, you owe this something, something. So she was kind of like bent out of shape over that. And I said, do you have this insurance? She said, yeah. Is it after May 31st? She's like, yeah. Don't worry about it, it's gonna go away. And she was like, what do you mean it's gonna go away? I said, yeah, see, what happened was that insurance got contracted to take care of a lot of Medicare patients. And so they didn't have the bandwidth to do all the prior authing. So they subcontracted it to another company that's doing it. So many of the people who we had already prior auth didn't transfer over. So things fell through the cracks in that period of time. And so they were like, how much is that bill? She's like, $18,000. I said, yeah, I know, that's a lot of money. But we have like $2 million in denials. So, for you, it's 18,000, but over that period of time in that transition, it's a huge amount for us. So we just have to go back and clear it and explain and so on and so forth. And we have a whole crew working on it. It'll get all cleared up. This conversation I had with her in September. And right now, it's down to $100,000 in for us. At our end, I know what it is. I don't know what it is for patients. So it got cleared up. So what am I trying to say? Everyone is in this. I know when it comes to you at that moment, it's like crippling, like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? But sometimes one phone call, just a little bit of understanding, and it does, improve, it does get solved. And I'll end with this small story back again to the whole community thing. You saw this already. This is a very united group. This is, I've seen, and actually Nabil was asking me earlier, I treat pancreatic cancer too. What other cancers do you treat? Like, how is the community in other cancer, treatment communities? I said, this is the best one. It really is, because all the researchers, all the doctors, all the patients, all the advocates are so united. They're all here not to make themselves famous, but to move the field forward. And when you have a group of people that have that mission, that goal, success is bound to happen. Why not, right? There's no egos. You're not dealing with any of that. So that was kind of encouraging. And there's this pharmaceutical company that wants to make this app. And they want to call it Galaxies of Hope. And it's for neuroendocrine cancer to help them navigate their journey and get them, to where they need to go and get them all the treatment and therapies and access to therapies and so on. So they interviewed a few of us, and they asked me, so why do you think patients should have hope? That was the last question. And where do you think they can find it? And I said, well, with each other, because they are very inspiring. That's who I find hope from. How they live, how they see the world, they teach me every day. They put things in perspective for me. So that's the first place I go to find hope, is to just see them. And they inspire each other. The stories they give each other, because they understand, they truly understand. But if they're not feeling that connection or that hope, I want them to know that at the end of their day, sometimes at the doctor's office or outside the hospital when you're waiting for that valet, it's late and it's dark. There are buildings, right, all around with lights. Those are all researchers. They're doing some work. And they're trying to find a cure. So many other people, and if you took all the light bulbs that are on in all the research labs, everywhere, all over the world, And what they're all doing, they're looking for a cure for you. And so, when you're not feeling so down, just remember that. Look around, see all those light bulbs on those medical campuses that are on. And that is a galaxy of hope, isn't it? That's a lot of people. And they're all working. And you know that you need the brains, and you need the commitment, you need the focus, and you need to work hard. And that's how you make progress. And all of that is here. We are going to get there. It's just not fast enough for some. But we are going to get there. And we are getting there. And it's not based on my faith. I do have faith. But it's based on fact. And fact definitely gets people a little bit more convinced. But keep the faith. Keep the faith. It's happening. And it'll be sooner than you think.